Tuesday afternoon to you. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty of Browns news to talk about. A little later in the show, Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter and Cavs reporter from cleveland.com, will join us. We'll talk Browns. We'll also talk Cavs. Just a game and a half out of first place in the Eastern Conference, but we begin by talking Browns and some not so great news, some disturbing news concerning Malik McDowell. Malik McDowell was arrested in Florida for public exposure and assaulting a deputy in Florida, Deerfield Beach area of Florida. Aggravated battery on an officer, resisting an officer with violence and public exposure. The Browns issued a statement. Spokesperson said, "We are aware of the very concerning incident and arrest involving Malik McDowell and are in the process of gathering more information. We understand the severity of this matter. Our thoughts are with the well-being of all involved. We will have no further comment at this time." Let's welcome in Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. And Jeff, that's a young guy that we thought was getting his life together. There are some mental health issues that are well documented, and you certainly don't want to see that, but not a good look for Malik McDowell right now.
No, it's really not. And this is a guy, he had missed all of his NFL career up to this point. Was a 2017, I believe, second round pick of the Seattle Seahawks, and never played for them because he had incidents, including an ATV accident where he, severely injured himself. He had a very public arrest in Michigan. He had some long-running issues when he was at Michigan State. That it was really nice to see him, turn a negative story into a positive one this season. He was probably the Browns' best defensive lineman outside of Myles Garrett, certainly on the inside. And, obviously there's something seriously wrong. Just reading the incident and what he's been arrested for. That's not something that's going to be tolerable for the NFL. The Browns obviously couldn't come out and say it right away. They have to wait for some due process and to get their story, and figure out what to do. But he's not going to be back. Just the basic terms of this, he's still on probation from an assaulting a police officer charge. I believe it was in 2019 in Michigan. This will revoke his probation, and he will be going back to jail, is what it looks like. Obviously, if he's found guilty of these things. There is video. It's disturbing. I would recommend you don't watch it unless you really are just morbidly curious about it. But it's a very sad situation, and I'm glad the Browns said what they did about everybody involved needing the help, because McDowell clearly needs it on his own. He's going to have some time away to get that. But the people who were around and involved, as victims in this. That's a scary situation. That's a very weird, traumatizing situation, and I hope that they can handle it as well, because it's not something that you would ever want to have happen to anyone that you know.
Yeah, and the police officer was pretty severely injured as well in the incident. So we'll see how that plays out. A little later in the show, we'll get into what it means football-wise, which is not good for the Browns, because he was probably one of their most effective defensive tackles, and they're going to need to upgrade that substantially, but we'll get to that a little bit later. Let's move on. Odell Beckham Jr., Rams, played really well. In fact, Pro Football Focus ranked Beckham 89.9. That is the highest grade for a wide receiver during wild card weekend, and the numbers weren't huge, but he's involved in a number of different ways. He threw a pass that was pretty good. They're finding ways to get him involved pretty quickly with Matthew Stafford. What does it say that the Rams were able to incorporate him pretty quickly, and the Browns couldn't unlock that for the better part of a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years maybe?
He certainly had the opportunities in Cleveland, and it just didn't happen for him. And, you can play armchair psychologist, you can play, head coach on the side, whatever you want to call it. It didn't work. It was clear that it was he was somewhat at fault. I think the offense was somewhat at fault. I think Baker Mayfield shares some culpability in that, and I think all of those parties will acknowledge that too. He's just a better fit for what Los Angeles is trying to do. I think he accepts the fact that the Cooper Kupp is having such a spectacular season. that he's learned that he can play off of that and still thrive. And I'm not sure that he ever really felt that in Cleveland. He felt like he had to be the number one. I know he's close friends with Juice, Jarvis Landry, but it felt like he needed to show that he was the guy, and it just didn't happen for whatever reason. The Rams, look, he's had some issues with the Rams as well. It hasn't been all great, but I tell you what, that game he played phenomenal. The pass that he caught in perfect stride from Matthew Stafford, those are throws that Baker Mayfield just never made to him. Some of that is the fact that the Browns also, they couldn't have enough other guys to shake coverage off of him. The defenses in the AFC North didn't respect Jarvis Landry, Austin Hooper, Donovan Peoples-Jones in the way that they respect Cooper Kupp and Tyler Higbee and the weapons that the Rams have, and the fact that Matthew Stafford isn't afraid to throw a ball into traffic and play to one of Odell's great strengths, which is going and making a contested catch. That's not something that Baker really tried to do all that much with him in Cleveland, and not something that Odell seemed all that comfortable with, quite frankly, in Kevin Stefanski's offense. So there's a whole lot of things that go into it. I'm happy for Odell. I'm happy to see him break out. I just wish it would have happened when he was wearing the orange instead of the Rams horns, because that was a little tough to swallow. And from a personal standpoint, I also covered the Detroit Lions and have a long time covering Matthew Stafford. Last night was really weird, watching two guys who've struggled a lot over the last few years and took a lot of scapegoating from their old teams. For them to thrive last night was an interesting night at my house, let me tell you.
Let me ask you this. So let's dive into that just a little bit deeper. Is it because the system that Kevin Stefanski runs does not, it doesn't encourage freelancing, if you will, however you want to put it? It's be here, be there on time, be in this position on time. And Stephon Diggs couldn't deal with that type of system. Yeah. That's why he wanted out of it. Is it as simple as that?
That's certainly a large part of it. Odell is a guy who will freelance on his releases on routes. Every 7-yard out pattern is different with him. He's not going to run them all the same. He's going to see, okay, well, the defensive back, he has his right foot back a little bit on this, so I think he's going to give me a cleaner release to the outside, so I might try to take it up a little bit more and break it off later. Look, in a timing-based and precision offense like Kevin Stefanski runs, you can't do that. You've got to be when and where you have to be at the right time, and it just didn't happen for him enough. And Diggs is another one that's like that. There are several receivers that don't necessarily conform to the strict structure that the Stefanski offense, the Kubiak-based offense, Shanahan, whatever you want to call it. It does require strict adherence to being when and where you need to be. However you get there, and he just wasn't doing that as much. So some of that is certainly on him. I think we, as Cleveland media and as Cleveland fans, also, when we saw that we were getting him, I think we overlooked some flaws to his game. I will also say I don't think that he's nearly the athletic demon that he was early on in his career. I think the injuries have really piled up, and I'm not sure that he accommodated his game well enough to acknowledge that either. So that goes into it too. But in Los Angeles, he's got a quarterback who can look. Matthew Stafford for my money, has the best arm in the league. He can fit a ball into a window that is darn near closed and make it happen. That's the kind of quarterback that Odell thrives with, and that's what you're seeing right now. I'm fascinated to see if he can make it happen again against the Buccaneers, who have a little bit more of a physical coverage presence and also a bit more of a pass rush. We'll see how that handles, but against Arizona, man, Odell looked really good, no doubt about it.
All right, before we take a quick break, a guy that is a unrestricted free agent who has really stepped up his game, MJ Stewart, took to Instagram to kind of thank the Browns and the front office. Man, what a time I had in Cleveland. Want to thank the organization and the city for giving me such an experience. Year 4 in the books, but my story is just beginning. So, Jeff, this is a guy that the more I saw of him, the more I liked him. Not a heralded guy, came kind of out of nowhere, but every time you saw him on the field, he was like, man, this guy belongs. He can play. That's a guy that if the Browns can find a way to get him affordably, I'd love to see him back.
That would be great. I thought he outplayed Ronnie Harrison down the stretch in that safety role. And I love the role that he has carved out for himself. He can play outside corner. He can play slot corner. He can play as either safety spot. That's a completely invaluable role for a defensive back. If you can play all those different roles in one package as a reserve, he can be your number 4 outside corner, your number 2 slot corner, your number 3 or 4 safety. He seems pretty comfortable with that, and he played better the more he played this season. So yeah, I would love to see him come back. He is going to get some free agent interest though. There's probably not a team in the league that can't use a guy like what MJ Stewart did, especially the last 4 to 6 weeks of the season. He really helped himself well, and it's nice of him to show the class. I wonder if he's trying to leverage a little bit, like, hey Cleveland, I really do like it here. Maybe hook me up and I'll stay. We'll see how that plays out.
You do whatever you need to do when you're in a contract negotiation. So again, I think he was valuable. Jeff Risdon and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, talking a little quarterback for the Browns. You knew we'd talk Baker Mayfield. Sports for CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns on this snowy Tuesday in Cleveland, Ohio. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about the quarterback, Baker Mayfield.
This is about Baker. Well, people want him to, the Browns want him back. And the problem is that he ain't going to be any better. He ain't going to get any better. And get a quarterback that test him. Put another quarterback in that's going to make him fight for the job. I don't think he's worth all that money. He haven't earned it. He haven't earned it in 2020. Well, when I see he earn, win like a playoff championship or get close to the Super Bowl, then that's different. He didn't do that.
All right, Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. When you look at Baker Mayfield, I don't think the issue with Baker Mayfield is his desire or his heart or any of that. So I don't think he needs to be pushed. You got to find a way to unlock the talents that he has, and does he fit into this system? I don't know the answer to that, and the Browns better figure that out pretty quickly.
They've got 1 year to do it. I do think it. Look, I know it is a dead horse, but it does need to continue to get beaten. He was not healthy this season. He had a massive shoulder problem. This is an injury that most quarterbacks would not play through. Most organizations would also not let their quarterback play through it. And to me, that says one of the things that it tells me is that they, as much as they paid Case Keenum and as much as they professed that they trusted him, the fact that they didn't play him tells me that they're not all that confident in him, that they believe that Baker is the guy. even when he's obviously not right. So it sure seems like they're committed to him for the 2022 season. Long term, who knows? I don't expect him to get a contract offer this offseason. I expect him to be playing for that contract next season. I think that's the motivation, that's the incentive that they're dangling for him. That the carrot is, you got to play well next year, and we will give you that contract that you want, whatever, $35-40 million a year, and hopefully he can go out and earn it. He has shown, certainly at times, that he is that kind of a quarterback. You go back 1 year ago today, we were talking about how great he was. They almost beat the Chiefs, if not for a missed call, an obvious missed call, by the way. They're playing in the AFC Championship game. How fast we forget that, how fast we are, or how quick we are to ignore the injuries and the downgrade that he took at wide receiver. Look, Odell didn't play well. Jarvis Landry didn't play well. The young guys did not develop. Austin Hooper, I think, played his way, if not out of town, certainly to a pay cut. There were a lot of things that the offensive line wasn't as good either. There was a whole confluence of things. Did Baker need to play better? Yes, he did, absolutely. And if he's not better next season, they better have a long-term plan that doesn't involve him. But, I'm still someone... There isn't a quarterback that's available this offseason that's better than Baker Mayfield to do what Cleveland needs him to do at quarterback. Now, there's a lot of pressure on him to get healthy and to prove that he can, make that work and sustain it over a 17-game schedule. We haven't really seen him do that yet. It is time, but at the same time, Russell Wilson, that's kind of a pipe dream. Aaron Rodgers, I don't think he's going anywhere. Deshaun Watson, who knows? Those are pretty much the only names of anybody that you could go and even consider getting who's definitely better than what Baker Mayfield is for this team, and that's... then you're sacrificing a lot of other assets to make that happen. That hurts the rest of the team around whoever the quarterback is. So I think fans are going to have to swallow hard and accept that Baker Mayfield is the best option in 2022 for the Cleveland Browns. And if it doesn't work, you won't have him in 2023. I think they've probably made that pretty clear. But if it does work, then man, you're way ahead of the game, because now you've got an even better roster around him, and you've got a healthy Baker. A proven, more accomplished Baker and a confident Baker, and we've seen that guy be dangerous before.
All right, this one will cause you to raise some eyebrows. Then ESPN.com, NFL executives looking to what they expect to happen in the 2022 season, and they think that the Browns will look to trade. So this is again, they're doing a number of NFL executives. And basically they're saying at the end of the day, he's not a great fit. He'd be best in a shotgun up-tempo offense like Arizona, where you spread it out. The Browns will get rid of the only good quarterback they've had in years and fall into the same traps of the past. And that's kind of the word of warning that you have been issuing before that. Again, he probably isn't a great fit in Kevin Stefanski's offense, but when you look back at what the Browns have had, hadn't been great at quarterback.
No, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to stick with him if there are better options. If Arizona wants to give up on Kyler Murray after what we saw last night, okay, give me that guy. I like that guy. I think Kevin Stefanski can fix that guy. I think Alex Van Pelt can fix that guy. And if they want Baker for that and maybe a first-round pick, throw in Austin Hooper and throw in, I don't know, Tommy Togiai, because it doesn't look like he's going to be fitting around in Cleveland too much longer. Maybe you can make that happen, sure. But you can't just trade him away just out of spite and the fact that, he played hurt and didn't play well. That's not how good teams operate. You've got to be able to have a clear succession plan in place. You've got to have a replacement. Look, this is a team, for all of its foibles, for all of the disappointment of this last season, they are still poised to win now. That includes next season. Starting over with a questionable quarterback that isn't as accomplished as even Baker Mayfield, that's not likely. A guy like Taylor Heineke, that's not helping the Browns get over a hump. That's creating more humps, and maybe he can go over a couple of those, but or Marcus Mariota, that's not helping your team get better. If you can get me Deshaun Watson, and he can pass the sniff test. If you can get me Kyler Murray, if you can get me somehow one of those guys, heck yeah. But that's this is the time of the year for speculation on those sorts of things, and especially with teams where they have sour endings of their season, like Arizona did, like Seattle did, and it makes for interesting conversation. But I quite frankly, I'll be very surprised if Baker Mayfield isn't the starter for all 17 games in Cleveland in 2022 if he's healthy.
All right, so ESPN also listed biggest needs for each of the 32 teams in the NFL. This is not a surprise for the Browns. They list the wide receiver group, and before we just say upgrade it with a solid draft class as well, let's take a look at some of the free agent wide receivers as well. And there are some interesting names on this wide receiver list. And again, you can cross number 5, Odell Beckham Jr. off there. He's not coming back. Goodwin, that's pipe dream. Adams, that's pipe dream. You look at some of the others. You stay up on this. Who are some reasonable wide receivers that are veterans, that are free agents, that could come in and be effective here, do you think?
Allen Robinson is one of the interesting names off of that list. He's never played with a good quarterback in his life. This is a guy who spent his college career with Christian Hackenberg. He was with Blake Bortles and others in Jacksonville. Justin Fields and the fiasco that they had at quarterback in Chicago. And that's not me slamming Justin Fields. I think he's going to be good in time, but boy, it was not pretty this season. That's a guy that I think is probably going to be a little bit undervalued. You look at a guy like Michael Gallup on that list. Man, if he's healthy, he's great. He is exactly what they wanted Odell Beckham to be in Stefanski's offense. He's coming from an offense that does have some precision elements to it. He's certainly one that fits, but like he and Chris Godwin, they're both injured. They both tore their ACLs in late in the season. That makes it iffy. Another name on there, Christian Kirk, is a guy. He's sort of lost favor in Arizona for whatever reason. That's a really good player. He can play in the slot. He can play outside. He blocks well. He understands, how to run routes when and where he needs to be, like we talked about earlier. That's one to watch, and I don't think he's going to break the bank. I think he's a guy that can, get, 3 years, $24 to $30 million, somewhere in that range, and help the Browns out. At least upgrade the Rashard Higgins role. And then you go after the draft and you draft hopefully somebody in the first or second round with one of your premium picks, and you hit on it. It looks like it's a pretty darn good and deep wide receiver class. There's certainly a lot of intriguing options this offseason. They have to do something, though. They don't need just one. They've got to get multiple bodies in here because you are going to have to replace Jarvis Landry sooner than later. He could potentially be on the way out. I don't know anything about that right now, but they've got to get somebody who can come in, who can catch a simple 6-yard slant pass and turn it into a 20-yard gain. They need somebody who can catch a bubble screen and turn it up the field a little bit, better than what that Peoples-Jones or Demetric Felton can do. One of the interesting names on there was Cordero Patterson. That's sort of the model of what the Browns want Demetric Felton to be. It would be fun if that happened. That would certainly help things out. But yeah, they've got a lot of work to do this offseason at the wide receiver spot. No doubt about it.
Yeah, and that without question has been. I certainly thought it was going to be substantially better, and I think the Browns, if you held them, they thought the wide receiving core were deep, were talented, and it just they need guys that get separation too. That's the other thing.
Yeah, and you saw a lot of that, especially with the young guys. Donovan Peoples-Jones, he's a talented athlete. I love the guy off the field. He's one of the smartest guys in the NFL. He wants to be a surgeon when he's done. God bless him. He does everything at the same speed, and defenses adjust to that. Anthony Schwartz also does everything at the same speed. It's really, really fast, but you can adjust that if there's no variance to your step. You figure out where he's going to go, and it limits the options. They need a crafty route runner. That's why I do like Allen Robinson. That's why I like Michael Gallup. Guys that can plant a foot in the ground and shake a defensive back and get open on a slant or an out or a post route or a drag route or something like that. They don't really have that other than Jarvis Landry. And I think we'd all agree, we still like Jarvis, but he's not the Pro Bowler that he used to be. So they've definitely got their work cut out for him there.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a potential quarterback and somebody the Browns might be looking at. We'll see. Sports4CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
Welcome back to Sports for CLE. We continue talking Browns with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Time for us to head to the voicemail of truth and reason. This one about the Browns quarterback position and a name we have heard as a potential upgrade.
Hi, I just wanted to comment on Deshaun Watson possibly becoming the next Cleveland Browns quarterback. Does he have great physical abilities? Sure he does. Great player. However, according to the New York Times, the man also has 22 lawsuits currently pending for coercive and lewd sexual behavior. So I ask, what could possibly go wrong with the Browns inserting him into the locker room?
And Jeff Risdon, well done by our voicemailer. Obviously, that is something that it's a huge concern, and well played by our viewer.
It absolutely was. That was nice. I appreciate the intro there. That's look, he's obviously got some issues. Those issues are being adjudicated in the next 3 or 4 weeks. All those court cases are set to be resolved over that time. Until that time, he is toxic. Nobody's going to touch him. Certainly not for the asking price that the Texans had. Remember, they tried very hard to deal him to the Miami Dolphins this offseason. Or during the season, they wanted 3 first-round picks and 2 young players. That doesn't strike me as a value move. Look. Obviously, he's a fantastic quarterback. I live in a house full of Texans fans from when we lived in Houston. You're not going to find me, dissing what Deshaun Watson can do on the field. But with all of that, you can't make that move right now. That's a pie in the sky move until he's cleared. As I like to say, until he passes the NFL sniff test, and right now he does not. And there will be fans, even if he does, get cleared, that will not accept, whatever resolution comes from these civil suits. So, 22 counts of behavior that you don't want to ever have associated with your name are going to be stuck to him, whether he's cleared or not. That's just the way things are. It's a different situation than Michael Vick, but if you go back to when Michael Vick came back into the league, there were a lot of fans that continually booed him nonstop and refused to support the teams that he was with simply because of his past. That's going to follow Deshaun Watson as well, and I'm not sure that the Cleveland Browns are an organization that really wants to take on that sort of a tale if they don't have to.
Now, the one thing is the Browns need better quarterback play. If it's as simple as, Baker Mayfield gets healthy and it's there, great. But this is a decision that's going to have lasting implications. You have to get the quarterback position correct, and you have to be right on it if you're Andrew Berry, because the window is now. If you have another year where you don't make the playoffs with this window, tick tock, and that window's shutting.
Yeah, I'm playing the old Channel 43 tune, Tick, 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 where they always show the Jim Brown movie at night. It is ticking on them. It's, look, Deshaun Watson, obviously he makes the Cleveland Browns better, but, again, you're giving up 3 first-round picks. Let's say you're one of the players that the Texans will want is Baker Mayfield. I don't know that first off, we don't know who their head coach is going to be. It looks like it might be Brian Flores or somebody from the Patriot Way ilk. Baker's not exactly a great fit for that sort of system, so I'm not sure that they would want that. You do have to find something to do with Baker Mayfield at that point. You're selling low, certainly, on Baker Mayfield. It's a really tough situation. Again, if you tell me that you can get me Deshaun Watson without harming the team and getting him clear and he will pass that sniff test, great. But right now, none of those things are true. And it makes it where, look, it's fun to talk about it. It's fun to fantasize about having Deshaun Watson as your quarterback, but there's a lot of obstacles that have to get out of the way before that's even a consideration for the Browns.
All right, so Jared Mueller from BrownsWire.com wrote an article, 3 Browns moves that they could make to free up $30 million in cap space. So the first one is releasing Jarvis Landry. That's a $15.1 million, and then there is a cap hit. J.C. Tretter's another one that's $8 million in cap space, and then Case Keenum $6.5 million in cap space. Do you see them free? And now it's important to note they still have $10.598, so almost $10.6 million under the cap that they can roll over. Do you see them playing those games so that they can, now there's a need at defensive tackle, so that, I mean, there are evolving needs where you can reallocate that money.
Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that Keenum, just the fact that they didn't play him this season with the salary that they were paying him, when they obviously had a need for him to play, that tells me that he's not going to be back. Certainly not at the price tag that he's at. So that seems like a very simple one. Tretter is interesting because there was some negative attention brought his way, both locally and nationally, with his involvement with the NFLPA as the NFLPA president. And it has become increasingly difficult for a lot of people, both in and out of the organization, to separate Tretter the player from Tretter the player rep. I think that might be a headache that they're willing to, say go away. And also, they happen to have Nick Harris in reserve. Harris played a lot better this year than he did in his rookie season. He is an heir apparent. They drafted him for that. I would say that one is honestly probably the most likely of the 3. Landry, look, they've got to get better at wide receiver. You don't get better at wide receiver by cutting your best wide receiver until you know that you've got other people that can come in and take that role. So he's certainly the iffiest of the group. Look, he's very expensive. I would hope, and this is just my personal feeling, I would love for him to take a pay cut, extend a void year onto it, push the salary cap hit down a little bit, and take a lot less money for this coming season and play out 1 or 2 more seasons in Cleveland while this window's still there, because the Browns are a better football team with a healthy and motivated Jarvis Landry on it. But saving $13.5 million when you can go get a premium defensive tackle for that, a premium starting safety for that's tough to overlook.
Yeah, those are all decisions that Andrew Berry's got to. They're going on right now, and they will eventually figure out what they want to do in moving forward. So it's what happens when you have to rebuild and try to make things happen on the fly. Jeff Risdon and I are going to step aside, take one more time out. We continue talking Browns when we return here to Sports for CLE. We've touched on it. Let's take a look at what the Browns need to do to improve the defensive interior line. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
We continue talking Browns football with Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Let's take a look at the Pro Football Focus rankings for the defensive side of the ball. Overall, the Browns' fourth highest graded defense, but the team's top three defensive tackles finished 33rd through 35th out of 37 defenders who logged snaps for Cleveland. And you see that's where the rankings are in terms of all qualifying NFL defensive tackles. So Jeff Risdon, we've also mentioned, the problems with Malik McDowell. He was probably one of the better ones. He will not be there. So this is a critical, was an important need. Now it is a critical area of upgrade that is necessary.
Oh, absolutely. They have to get better on the defensive interior. Look, they are a team that relies on speed at linebacker. When you have guys like Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and that whole group really is predicated on not having blockers in their way. They need defensive linemen who can maintain a block, who can stack up and keep them clean. They didn't do a great job at that. Malik Jackson had some moments. I think his play declined as the season went on. Look, they've got to get somebody better. They've tried the draft. Between the last couple of drafts, the guys just haven't worked out in the middle rounds. That doesn't mean that they can't try it again, but this is an area where you can find really good, serviceable veterans, and that, quite frankly, they don't need a dynamic guy. They just need guys that are better at doing the nuts and bolts for the defense, because the rest of the defense, look, when they're healthy, that's a really strong back seven, back eight. If you can give me, one or two free agents, in the budget range who have some experience, who understand what they're going to be doing in Cleveland, you can go out and help yourself a lot there. Hopefully you get some development from some of the young guys. Hopefully you find a diamond in the rough. That is an area where there a lot of 3rd through 6th round draft picks wind up becoming very good, serviceable, better than serviceable players. Look, that opportunity is going to be there for the Browns, but they have to get it. And this is another one. They don't need just one. They need two in this offseason. So I'm hopeful that they will attack it in free agency and also in the draft. It's not worthy of a first-round pick. Defensive linemen, if they're not pass rushers, that's just not a premium position. It's not a premium position in Joe Woods' defense. But if you can get a guy in the 3rd round, 4th round that's better than the guys that they've taken in the last couple of years in the 3rd and 4th round, you got to keep taking a crack at it, because what they've got now isn't good enough.
All right, so we have a look at a couple of them. These are guys that would be defensive interior linemen's best fits, and they say the Browns would work with these. So first one, DJ Jones from the San Francisco 49ers. You see the grade. His career high at 73.2. You see the Browns team that would be interested in it. And you see, 14 tackles for loss or no gain, second to only Aaron Donald. And again, that's a guy that's probably not going to break the bank, but there's a name to listen out for, DJ Jones from the 49ers.
Yeah, and the fact that he doesn't go backwards when look, the biggest thing that the Browns need, aside from a guy who can keep the linebackers clean, is a guy who on 3rd and 2 isn't going to get pushed backwards by the opposing right guard. That's been a massive issue for the Browns for some time. That guy's not moving backwards. He has some anchor to him. He can play as a nose, but he's aggressive enough that he can, with his hands, with his lower body strength. That's a perfect guy. And again, this is a guy. 2 years, $10 million probably gets it done. That's affordable, and that would provide such an impact. It makes JOK look even better behind him, and that's my goal for if I'm the Browns defense, is to find ways to get your featured players to be better and put in better positions. Getting a guy like that in front of JOK makes him that much better, and I like that idea.
Another one, and you'll be a little bit more familiar with this one, Malik Collins plays for the Texans, and you look at it and you see the number of snaps that he's played. 6 straight years, 500 snaps. They list the Ravens, Bills, Browns, and Jets as teams that should be interested in it. And again, they like the upside of an interior pass rush. If you get a little bit of push in the middle to go with with, Myles Garrett and potentially if you re-sign Jadeveon Clowney, boy, that's a lot of trouble for an offensive line.
It is, and Collins he's had an interesting career. He went from being the low man on the totem pole to being the best that the really, really, really bad, parenthetically speaking, Texans defense was this past season. He and rookie Roy Lopez were their best defensive linemen. Those guys are not household names. Were they great? No, but again, this is a guy, he's better than what the Browns have now. This is a guy, he is an ascending talent. He's got some ability. I remember watching him at Nebraska. This is a guy who does have some violence to him, who can, push the pocket back a little bit, maybe get a cleanup sack or two, or create a cleanup sack or two for the outside guys. Again, that's exactly what the Browns need. This is not a team that needs, a top 20 pick on the interior defensive line. This is a team that needs functionality, and Malik Collins is a functional guy that's going to be affordable. So yeah, I love that one. I actually would probably prefer him to Jones simply because I think his ability to play across multiple spots. He can play the 1, he can play the 3, he can even play the 5 if they want to go to an odd man front. Not something that they look to do often, but it allows them to have some flexibility. Look, Myles can play anywhere, Clowney can play anywhere. You get that sort of flexibility for Joe Woods. I like the coach's chances with that.
When you look at this defense, that was a thing that Andrew Berry wanted to upgrade. The pieces are there to be really, really dominant. When you talk about a Denzel Ward and a JOK, they have guys that are problems for offenses at every level, and they've added multiple ones. Do you sense that this is close to being the type of dominating defense that gets you where you want to go, which is a championship?
Boy, the way they played down the stretch, especially after the bye week, I really liked what I saw. The results weren't always perfect, but boy, they really looked like a unit that understood what they were trying to do. They felt like they hit their stride. They have a lot of players who complement each other well and play off one another well. The communication in the secondary certainly got better as the season progressed. Look, as long as Myles Garrett's healthy, and if you can give me Clowney back, please make that happen, Andrew. Thanks in advance. This defense can be. Look, they finished was it 4th in Pro Football Focus rankings. There's no reason they can't be that or better next season with the group that they've got. Again, they've got to get an interior presence. I would love to see them get another slot corner. Whether it's MJ Stewart or probably somebody with a little bit more twitch to him, who can come in and play the slot in a pinch. But with all the injuries that they had this season, the fact that they finished as well as they did, that's a testament to the talent that they've got, the depth that they've got, and look, I was very critical of Joe Woods early in the season. He figured it out. He figured out how to use what he had, and credit to him. And I think I'm really excited about what the Browns defense can do. That's why that first pick, I've said it on other places, I'll say it here. Every mock draft I do from now until the draft will feature a wide receiver with the Browns' first-round pick until I'm told otherwise.
Jeff Risdon from BrownsWire.com. Jeff, as always, man, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Thanks, and go Cavs.
All right, Jeff Risdon, make sure you read him in BrownsWire.com. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we'll continue talking a little bit of Browns with Ashley Bastock from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. We will also get into some Cavs. Cavs just a game and a half out of the top spot in the Eastern Conference in the NBA. Sports for CLE. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Welcome back. Back to new friends, new classroom, and learning new things. Back to wearing shoes, man, like real shoes. Back to rushing to class. Back to having questions. Lots of questions. Back to vending machine dinners. Back to too much caffeine, too late at night, but feeling like it was a night well spent. Back to pursuing your dreams and taking control of your future. Come back to go forward. Try C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery, partners in education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports for CLE, and we welcome him and Ashley Bastock, Browns beat reporter for the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com. Ashley, when you look at it, I know you and your colleagues at cleveland.com have talked about this. Browns have to improve the quarterback play, just have to. Andrew Berry has to find a way to do it, whether it's a healthy Baker Mayfield or whatever. Do you think there is any possibility of a trade for, the names out there, Derek Carr and Deshaun Watson and Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson? Is that being realistic, do you think?
I'm going to say right now, I think not so much. And that's due to a lot of things, right? Like, I don't think there's a feasible possibility that the Browns can pull off getting Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson to want to come here. And obviously those guys kind of control their own future a little bit as well. So I think that's part of it, right? And then there's also what the Browns have said so far to this point, which is Baker Mayfield's our guy. I think there are ways that they can stay true to that sentiment while beefing up the room that doesn't involve trading him. Now, of course, in the NFL, you can never say never. I know our biggest discussion as a staff was, well, even though it's unlikely, if one of those guys became available and you thought that a move, which involved a trade, could get you to the Super Bowl, like, why wouldn't you take it in that instance? But that being said, that's a very hypothetically based conversation. I just think at this stage, given everything we know so far, given the options that are out there, it's very unlikely that a big deal like that happens. And quite honestly, it's a nuclear option. It would be going back on everything they said. It would essentially mean Baker Mayfield's time here would be done if they were trading him, obviously. So I just overall think that given all of that, it's pretty unlikely at this stage.
Do you think they bring in a veteran? Clearly, if you're sending Baker Mayfield out there to play with an injured, non-throwing shoulder, you weren't crazy about what you had in the backup in Case Keenum because you didn't play him when your guy was beat up. Do you think they bring in a veteran backup, quote unquote?
Of all the options we discussed on our Orange and Brown Talk podcast, where we looked at basically 5 different options that involved Baker Mayfield's future, this was the option that I personally was in the most favor of. And there are a few things we know about Kevin Stefanski for sure, right? Like, he is a head coach who hates turnovers. You look at that Green Bay Packers game, and you mentioned them not replacing Baker when he was injured, but strictly football performance-wise, you look at what Baker Mayfield did in that Green Bay Packers game. He threw 3 interceptions in the first half, 2 of which he even admitted were just not good throws. And Kevin Stefanski still did not go to Case Keenum. I think Case Keenum has played a really valuable role on this team, a leadership role. Obviously, he had a relationship with Kevin Stefanski before, knew kind of the ins and outs of this offensive system. And I think they brought him in hoping to bring Baker Mayfield along a little bit more. But overall, I just think you can maybe find a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, for example, who maybe is a little bit younger, has a little bit more upside, who isn't immediately threatening to Baker Mayfield's starting spot, like some of those names we mentioned at the top, like Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, guys like that. So I think overall that might help give you more options, which I think is really important. Plus, What do we know about Baker Mayfield? He's a competitor. I think, quite honestly, he might thrive with a little bit more competition because he always likes to be the kind of player who proves people wrong. He's done that time and time again. So overall, I think it isn't necessarily just an option that, oh, we have a replacement on deck for him. It becomes a potential way to maybe get the best out of Baker Mayfield.
All right, so this is from Dog Pound Daily. 4 Browns free agents that are likely to leave the team this year. They list running back Dearness Johnson, tackle, the swing tackle, Chris Hubbard. That's a guy that the Browns really missed this year without question. Rashard Higgins and Ronnie Harrison. When you look at that, who are the ones that you really, really want back? And then the ones that if the money doesn't work out, you understand.
Yeah, I think Chris Hubbard, we've heard so much this year about how losing him hurt so bad this offense because he was a swing tackle and he got injured in that first game. It was essentially adding insult to injury because he replaced Jed Wills and then he's lost for the year. I really think those tackle spots, there's a lot of questions next year because obviously Jed Wills played through an injury. How's he going to bounce back? Jack Conklin on the other side had a bunch of injuries piling up. So I think that would definitely hurt because they seriously need some tackle depth, even if Hubbard is back. So that's number one. Number two, I would love to see Dearness Johnson come back. And obviously he's a restricted rights free agent. So there is still a possibility that happens, right? Like he's not an unrestricted free agent or anything where he can just go and sign wherever. So I just think that there aren't many third string running backs that are as effective as he is. And we've talked about this a lot too. Like, could Dearness Johnson go and potentially be a number 1 option somewhere else? And I think it's feasible that he could, or at least a solid contributing number 2 there. So those are the 2 guys that definitely, I think you try to bring back given the state of this offense.
Yeah, I would agree wholeheartedly. When you look at this roster, clearly the Browns need better quarterback play. Clearly they need to upgrade the wide receiving position. What do you put in that next tier? Things that that this offense or defense, this team needs to get back to where they want to be, which is the playoffs.
Well, obviously, I think the tackle spots, which I just mentioned, defensively, I'm very curious to see what happens with Jadeveon Clowney. Because if he's gone and you're looking at Takk McKinley's injury, they're going to need some more edge rushing depth in there and defensive end depth. So I think that could be key. Obviously, this incident involving Malik McDowell, which just happened between him and Malik Jackson, who's going to be a free agent. And for context, Malik McDowell was on a 1-year deal with the Browns. So given his arrest today, I would say it's probably highly unlikely that they bring him back for 2022. And I think defensive tackle was a position that they struggled with, quite honestly. So that would be a position that I would beef up on the defensive side as well as defensive end. Just beef up your defensive line as a whole.
Ashley Bastock from the Plain Dealer as well as cleveland.com and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. On the other side of the break, we're going to turn our attention to the Cavaliers. Ashley's been covering the Cavs. Just a game and a half out of first place in the Eastern Conference in the NBA. We're talking Cavs when Sports4CLE returns. Stay with us.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Ashley Bastock and I turn our attention to the Cavs. Time to head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about those Cavaliers.
Dave, the Cleveland Cavaliers, magnifying the team concept, a group of young players working together as a team, playing great defense and an offensive, utilizing great passes with a sprinkle of veterans that act professionally. Like our last night's game, even after a huge victory, Kevin Love was out on the floor practicing his three-point shot. This shows younger players what and how you must play and practice to make a team, which adds up to a great season.
All right, Ron Byer, a frequent voicemail contributor. Ashley, you've covered several of the Cavs games. What stands out to you about this team when you watch them?
Well, I think that voicemail kind of hit the nail on the head, and I was smiling to myself. I think I was the one who reported on or tweeted that Kevin Love was out there after the game yesterday, getting some extra shots up. And I think that kind of exemplifies what this team is about, right? Like, you have these younger guys who are really coming into their own. And I think when you look at the NBA as a whole, that third year is really, really key for players. And obviously, Darius Garland's starting to figure it out. I think he's not only made a case for being most improved player, I think he obviously has a legitimate all-star case here as well. And then you have guys like Kevin Love who are willing to take on these new roles, who obviously, Kevin Love's an NBA champion. He's the holdover from the Cavs' big three from those LeBron James years. So for him to be willing to go to that bench role and come off the bench and provide that spark, it says a lot. Him and Ricky Rubio both did that, obviously, earlier this year. Now Rajon Rondo's getting some of those minutes that Ricky Rubio would have gotten. But overall, I think just that combination of young guys figuring it out, veterans helping lead them along, just all the way down the bench, these guys, no matter who's coming in, I think everyone really is playing within themselves, doing their jobs, and they've all bought into this team philosophy, this team mindset that's allowed them to be ahead of schedule, I think.
So the Cavs are currently in fourth place in the Eastern Conference, just a game and a half out of first, a 5-game winning streak. They beat the Brooklyn Nets, the favorites to win the East yesterday at home. And they're getting it done with defense. Take a listen to Isaac Okoro. It'll tell you a lot just about the mindset of this team and how they view themselves. This is important. Listen to Isaac Okoro yesterday after they beat the Nets.
I mean, it was a big win for us. Of course, every win that we get this year is a big win. We just want to keep proving to the league that, we're one of the best teams in the league right now, and just taking it day by day and just keep winning.
When you were able to get the matchup of Kyrie Irving, what's going through your mind when, you've got to take him on?
I mean, as difficult as it is guarding him, just try to keep him in front of me. Me knowing that I have, J.A. and Evan, Lowry to back to protect me, I mean, it's easy for me to come up there and, protect, come up there, crowd him, force him through.
And again, Ashley, they believe they are among the best teams in the East, and they're a young team. That is so critical that, the success they've had, they see the work. They know it's not going to be easy, but there is that belief that's coming now.
Yeah, I think that confidence with results comes confidence, right? And especially you look at a guy like Isaac Okoro, who I think when the Cavs got him, knew they were, plugging him into a really big defensive role last year for a rookie. But now you have JB Bickerstaff saying he's one of the best on-ball defenders in the league. And I think it's kind of hard to argue with that. So I just think overall it kind of goes back to, again, the way these guys are buying into an overall team philosophy. They're gaining confidence with each win, but they're not getting too far ahead of themselves. Like JB Bickerstaff got asked a question yesterday about, how far he thinks they can go. And he's like, well, we're still worried about the 82. We're still in this regular season. It's a long season. And I just think overall they have really short memories in a good way, because they're not focused on any individual win. They don't stay focused on the mistakes they've made. They just kind of keep plugging along day to day. And given how long the season is in the NBA, given how long the postseason is just by itself, I think that's really, really key. And it's actually, I think, a huge credit to JB Bickerstaff that he's been able to get these young guys to buy into this kind of mindfulness where they're really in the moment and not looking ahead. And I think in basketball, in all professional sports, that's a really hard trait to develop, I think.
Well, the other thing is Darius Garland was named Eastern Conference Player of the Week yesterday, actually during the game. And he was asked just about how how things have changed for him and why things have changed. In the fourth quarter, he's been as good as there has been in the league. Here's Darius Garland on his play in the fourth quarter.
Super high.
Where does that stem from?
Teammates, coaching staff. Just let me be me. Just let me have the ball in my hands and just make plays from there.
And then Isaac, for you, how do you feel like you're a different defender today than the guy who came into the NBA?
I feel like I'm not getting, those little tricky offensive players loving to, hook your arms and do those tricky stuff. I'm starting to learn and watch more film on that, not allow that.
And Ashley, that's the thing that's impressive. These guys are probably the youngest starting five together when you figure the ages. And it's skewed a little bit because you do have the veteran presence, but they seem to understand what they need to do as a team to win.
Yeah, definitely. And I think with Darius Garland specifically, the best parts about his game, like he's always, I think in his early years in the NBA, he would find ways to score. But when I watched him, the thing that stood out to me was the way he facilitates. And I think this year, especially with Colin Sexton out, he commands that offense in a way that you watch him play, he just thrives off getting his teammates involved. And I think that, coupled with the fact that Cavs are playing a style of basketball with their big man sets, and I know jokingly called Tower City with Markkanen, Jared Allen, and Evan Mobley, but that's really hard for opposing teams to figure out. And I think last night, for example, you look at what they're able to do with Lauri Markkanen on Kyrie Irving, and you put somebody like him on some of these guards around the league, it kind of becomes a chess match in a way. So I just think overall, they've really found their own style, and it hasn't been dictated by what's popular throughout the rest of the league. And overall, it's worked to their advantage so far.
Ashley Bastock from the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. Thanks so much for the time and the insight. Thanks very much, Ashley.
Thank you.
All right, Ashley Bastock. Make sure you read her pages, the Plain Dealer, as well as cleveland.com. That'll do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. We will see you back here tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guests, Browns beat reporter Scott Petrak and the D-Man, Dennis Maniloff from News Radio, WTAM 1100. That is tomorrow at 4 here on Sports for CLE. We will see you then. Have a great night, everybody.